Hey, English learners! Welcome back to Talk English with Emma, your friendly place to improve your English through simple, real-life conversations. I'm Emma.
And I'm Alex, and we are so glad you chose to spend some time with us today. This episode is one that is very close to our hearts. The topic is big, and it is tender, and we are going to take it slowly and gently. So wherever you are, whatever kind of day you are having, we hope this feels like a warm and safe place to be.
On this channel, we make English learning easy, practical, and enjoyable. We focus on everyday speaking, useful expressions, and conversations that help you sound more natural and confident. If you enjoy learning with us, please like this episode, subscribe to Talk English with Emma, and share it with a friend who's learning English. Every like and every share means so much to us. Okay, let's talk about today's topic.
Emma, can I ask you something personal?
Always.
When you feel something deeply, something complicated and real, do you find it easier to say it in English or in your first language?
Oh, that is such an interesting question. And my honest answer is it depends on what the feeling is. Some feelings I find easier to say in English, partly because English has words that my first language does not have, words that name something I have always felt but never quite had a word for. And that moment of finding a word for something you have carried wordlessly for years is one of the most extraordinary experiences a language can give you.
Say more about that.
There's a word in English, and we will talk about it more today, called wistful. And the first time I came across it, I stopped completely because it described something I had felt my whole life without ever being able to name it. This feeling of gentle longing for something that is gone, or something that might never come. Not sadness exactly, not nostalgia exactly, something softer and more complicated than either. And I remember thinking, oh, there's a word for this. This thing I have been carrying around without a name has a name, and suddenly it felt a little lighter.
A little lighter, because naming something changes your relationship to it.
Exactly, and that is one of the most profound gifts that learning a language can give you. Not just more words, new ways of understanding your own inner life, new containers for feelings that were previously shapeless.
And that's what today's episode is really about. Not just how to talk about emotions in English, but how the vocabulary of emotion in English can actually deepen your understanding of yourself, and how being able to express your feelings in English precisely, honestly, with the right word can change the quality of your conversations and your connections.
We have 3 ideas for you today, 3 things that will completely change how you think and talk about human emotions in English. And the third one, Alex, I want to say this now, the third one is the one that stayed with me long after I thought about it, because it's not just about English, it's about something much more fundamental to being human.
Please stay with us all the way to the end. Let us begin. Idea number 1, stop using the same 5 feeling words. Because here's the truth about how most English learners talk about emotions. They use a very small vocabulary: happy, sad, angry, tired, okay. And these words are not wrong. They are real and useful and completely valid, but they are also very broad. They're like painting with 5 colors when English has given you hundreds. And when you only have 5 colors, everything starts to look the same.
Think about this. Happy is one word, but the experience of happiness is not one thing. There is the happiness of a surprise, sudden, bright, a little shocking. There is the happiness of a quiet Sunday morning when you have nowhere to be, soft, warm, spacious. There is the happiness of finishing something you worked very hard on, satisfied, almost disbelieving, a little proud. These are all happiness, but they feel completely different. And calling all of them happy is like saying everything that is warm is the same temperature.
And the same is true of sadness. There is grief, the deep, slow sadness of loss that does not go away quickly. There is disappointment, the specific sadness of an expectation that was not met. There is melancholy, a sadness with no clear cause that floats in without asking. There is heartbreak, the particular sadness of a love that ended. All of these are sadness, but they are not the same thing. And having the right word for the right feeling allows you to be more honest, more specific, more understood.
I want to tell you about a moment that changed how I thought about this. A few years ago, I was going through a difficult period, and a friend kept asking me, "Are you okay?" And I kept saying, "Yes, I am fine," because fine and okay were the only words I had for the state I was in. But I was not fine. I was not okay. I was something more specific and more complicated than that. I was carrying a feeling that I could not name, and not being able to name it made it feel larger and more formless than it actually was.
Like a shape in the dark that you cannot quite see.
Exactly. And then one day I came across the word bereft, and bereft means feeling a deep sense of loss. Not just sad, not just upset, bereft, completely without something that you needed. And I read that word and I thought, that is it. That is what I am. I am bereft. And something happened when I found that word. The feeling did not go away, but it had edges now, a shape. I could see it clearly, and somehow that made it more manageable.
Because shapeless things are the hardest to deal with. When a feeling has a name, you can look at it, you can talk about it, you can say, "This is what is happening inside me." And sometimes that is the beginning of it getting better.
So, idea number 1 is simply this: expand your emotional vocabulary in English. Go beyond the 5 basic words, not to sound impressive, but to be more honest, more precise, more fully yourself in the conversations you have.
Okay, idea number 2. And this one is about something very specific, about the difference between naming a feeling and describing a feeling, because both are important and they do different things in a conversation.
When you name a feeling, you say the word. I feel anxious, I feel proud, I feel content. And naming is powerful, but describing is even more powerful, because describing gives the other person an image. It takes them inside the experience rather than just labeling it from the outside.
And describing emotions in English is one of the richest and most beautiful uses of the language, because English has so many ways of doing it, so many phrases and images and metaphors for what happens inside us.
For example, instead of saying, "I feel anxious," you could say, "I have this feeling like something is sitting on my chest that I cannot move," or "There is a constant low-level hum of worry that I cannot quite switch off." Instead of saying, "I feel happy," you could say, "I feel this kind of lightness that makes me want to walk faster than usual," or "Everything feels a little easier today, like the world decided to cooperate." Instead of saying, "I feel sad," you could say, "I feel like something heavy settled over me, and I cannot quite shake it off," or "There is this hollow feeling behind my ribs that comes and goes."
These descriptions are so much more interesting than the single word, and they are not more difficult English. They are simple, concrete, physical descriptions of what feeling something actually feels like in the body, because all emotions are physical. Anxiety is that sitting weight on the chest. Joy is that lightness in the step. Grief is that hollowness behind the ribs. And when you find the physical description for a feeling, you have found something true about the experience itself.
And here is the last thing I want to share. I went through a period of grief a few years ago when someone I loved very much died, and I discovered that the English word grief is not enough to hold what that experience is. It's too small, too clean, too one syllable for something that takes up so much space. And I started finding other words and descriptions that felt closer to the truth, like the phrase, "a wave of grief," because grief does not stay constant. It comes in waves, sudden, overwhelming, and then it retreats, and you think it's over, and then another wave arrives. And the image of the wave helped me understand my own experience better. It made it less frightening, because waves pass. They always pass.
Emma, thank you for sharing that.
And I share it because I know so many of our listeners have felt that, have felt the thing that English calls grief. And maybe having these words and these images will help, even a little, even just to make the feeling feel a little more known.
So idea number 2 is this. When you talk about emotions in English, don't just name them. Try to describe them. Find the physical image, find the metaphor, find the comparison that gets closest to what the feeling actually feels like from the inside, because that's where real connection happens. When someone hears your description of a feeling and they think, yes, that's exactly it. I know that feeling too.
And now, the third idea, the one I promised.
Take your time with this one.
Idea number 3, the most important thing you can do with the language of emotion in English is not to use it to impress people, it's to use it to be understood and to understand others. Because here's what I've come to believe after years of learning languages and having conversations across languages and cultures. The deepest longing most human beings have is simply to be understood. To have someone hear what is happening inside them and say, I know, I have felt that too. You are not alone in this.
And language, precise, honest, caring language, is how we give that gift to each other.
And English gives you extraordinary tools for this. When you learn the emotional vocabulary of English well, you become someone who can ask questions that go deeper. Not just, how are you? But, you seem a little distant today. Are you carrying something? Not just, that must have been difficult, but what did that feel like from the inside? Not just, I understand, but I think I know something like that feeling. Can I tell you about a time I felt something similar?
These questions and responses change conversations. They change relationships. They make people feel seen and heard and less alone in whatever they're going through.
I want to tell you about something that happened to me quite recently. I was talking to someone I did not know very well, and they mentioned in passing that they had been feeling a bit lost lately. And instead of saying something general like, oh, I'm sorry to hear that, I hope things improve, I asked them one question. I said, when you say lost, what does that feel like for you? Is it more like you do not know what you want, or more like you know what you want, but you cannot find the path to it? And they stopped for a moment, and then they said, the second one, exactly the second one. And we talked for an hour about paths and wanting and the frustration of knowing your destination but not being able to see the road.
One specific question, and an hour of real conversation that would not have happened otherwise.
Because I used emotional vocabulary precisely enough to offer them a distinction, 2 types of lost, and they were able to say, that one, that is the one. And suddenly, they felt less lost, just from being offered the right words.
That is the power of emotional vocabulary in English. Not just for expressing yourself, but for helping others express themselves too. For creating the kind of conversation where people feel genuinely understood.
So, idea number 3, use the emotional vocabulary of English not just to speak, but to listen, to ask deeper questions, to offer people more precise language for what they are experiencing. Because understanding what you feel and being able to name it is one of the most human things there is, and you can give that gift to others through the words you choose.
Okay, let us slow down and take our word tour. A gentle, careful walk through some of the most beautiful emotion words in English.
First word, wistful. We mentioned this one at the very beginning, and it deserves a proper moment. Wistful means having or showing a feeling of vague or regretful longing. It's the feeling of gentle sadness when you think about something beautiful that is gone, or something you wanted that never quite happened. It's softer than sadness, more tender. For example, looking at old photographs makes me feel wistful. I'm happy those times existed, but I also miss them in a way that is hard to explain. Or, there was something wistful in the way she talked about her childhood, like she was reaching back for something she couldn't quite touch. Say it gently. Wistful. Wistful. That word is exactly the feeling it describes.
Next word, overwhelmed. We've used this word before, but let's really sit with it here in the context of emotion. Overwhelmed means having too much to process, too many feelings, too many demands, too many things happening at once. When you are overwhelmed, you can't quite get on top of it. For example, sometimes life just piles everything up at once, and I feel genuinely overwhelmed. Not sad exactly, just full, too full. Or, she was so overwhelmed by the kindness of everyone around her that she couldn't speak for a moment. Sometimes we are overwhelmed by good things too. Say it. Overwhelmed. Overwhelmed.
Next word, moved. To be moved means to feel a strong emotional response to something, usually something beautiful or kind or meaningful. When something moves you, it touches you deeply. You might feel tears come, or a tightening in the throat, or a warmth in the chest. For example, I was deeply moved by the speech she gave. I did not expect to feel anything, and then I felt everything. Or, certain pieces of music move me in a way I can't explain. Something in the sound goes directly to a place words cannot reach. Say it. Moved. Moved. A small word for a large feeling.
Next word, tender. We've met this word before too, but here, in the context of emotion, it has its fullest meaning. Tender means gentle and vulnerable, open, unguarded. When you feel tender, you are not protected. The feeling is close to the surface. For example, I felt unexpectedly tender when I saw the old photograph, like something soft had been uncovered that I didn't know was there. Or, there was a tender quality to the conversation. We were both saying things we don't usually say, and the room felt very quiet and very safe. Say it softly. Tender. Tender.
Next phrase, a lump in my throat. This is one of the most useful emotional phrases in English. A lump in your throat is that physical feeling of emotion when you are trying not to cry, when something has moved you and you are holding the feeling back and your throat tightens. For example, when she said thank you, I got a lump in my throat. I had not expected it to mean that much. Or, I always get a lump in my throat at the end of that film, even though I have seen it 20 times. Say it. A lump in my throat. A lump in my throat. A very physical, very human phrase.
And our last word today, bittersweet. Bittersweet is one of the most beautiful compound words in the English language. It means something that is both sweet and painful at the same time, a feeling that contains happiness and sadness together, like the end of something wonderful, like remembering a person you love who is no longer here, like watching your child grow up and feeling proud and heartbroken in equal measure. For example, the last day of our trip had a bittersweet quality. We were glad we had been there, but sad it was over. Or, looking back on that chapter of my life is bittersweet. So much was good, and it is gone now. Say it. Bittersweet. Bittersweet. 2 flavors in one word.
6 words today. Wistful, overwhelmed, moved, tender, a lump in my throat, and bittersweet. These words are not just vocabulary, they are invitations. invitations to be more honest, more specific, more real in the conversations you have about what it feels like to be human.
Now it is your turn, and this is the part we always love most.
Yes, because now the conversation belongs to you.
Here is your challenge. Think of one feeling you have experienced recently that is more complicated than happy or sad. A feeling with more texture in it, more layers. Maybe it was something wistful, maybe something bittersweet, maybe that lump in your throat when something unexpectedly moved you, and write about it in the comments, in English, in your own words.
You could write something like, I felt something bittersweet last week when I saw my old school building. I had not been past it in years, and it looked smaller than I remembered. And that smallness made me feel something I still cannot quite name. Or, I got a lump in my throat when my friend called just to say she was thinking of me. I had not realized how much I needed to hear that until I heard it.
Or maybe something simpler, something like, I felt moved today by a piece of music I had heard 100 times, and I still cannot explain why today was different, but it was.
Write it, in whatever English you have right now, because the act of finding the English words for what you feel, the act of reaching for the more precise word, the truer word, that is the practice. That is the whole practice.
And your comment might be exactly what another learner needed to read today. Someone who has been carrying a feeling without a name, and then they read your words and they think, oh, that is what I have been feeling, and now I have a word for it, and now it feels a little lighter.
Because naming things makes them lighter. That is one of the great gifts of language, and we are so glad you are here learning to use it.
Before we close, we want to say something to you. Learning the emotional vocabulary of English is not just about becoming a better English speaker. It's about becoming someone who understands themselves a little more clearly, who can be a little more honest about their inner life, who can offer a little more precision and care to the people they love when those people are struggling to find the words.
And that kind of understanding, that kind of precision and care, is one of the most quietly powerful things you can build in another language. It doesn't show up on a test, it doesn't appear in a certificate, but it changes the quality of every conversation you have, every relationship you are in, every moment where someone looks at you and trusts you enough to say something real about how they feel.
And you will know what to do with it, because you were here, learning, paying attention, trying to find the right words, and that matters more than you know.
If this episode helped you, please give it a like, subscribe to Talk English with Emma, and share it with someone who loves words and feelings and honest conversations. Your support helps us reach more learners every single week.
Until next time, take care of your English, and take care of your feelings. All of them, even the ones without names yet. This was Talk English with Emma. I'm Alex.
And I'm Emma. We will see you in the next episode. Bye, everyone.